don't think David is here yet, but then we'll go over. Was everyone able to do the coding bot? Did people have questions?
So they were done with the test, and then some of them also did the coding part, and they said some questions were somehow tough, like logic 2.
Oh, logic 2. Okay, then David can start and go over logic 2 first.
Okay. Let me get set up. Logic 2, make bricks. We want to make a roll of bricks that is 4 inches long. We have a number of small bricks, which are 1 inch each, and big bricks, which are 5 inches each. We turn true if it is possible to make the roll by choosing from the given bricks. So the problem wants us to do it without using any loops. So we have an integer goal that we want to reach, and we are also given integers for the number of small bricks and big bricks. So again, the small bricks are 1 inch long, and the big bricks are 5 inches long. And the goal of this program is to return true if it's possible to make a goal amount of bricks, and false if it's not possible. So we should always start with the big bricks first. So if we use up as much big bricks as possible, then we can then try to fill it up with the small bricks. And then if it doesn't work, then we know that it's not possible. So there's two cases. So there's the case when the amount of big bricks, the length that the big bricks can cover is greater than the goal, or if it's less than the goal. So let's write that. So notice how the big bricks are 5 inches each. So you can multiply big by 5 to get the length that the big bricks can cover. And in this statement, I check if the length that the big bricks can cover is greater than the goal. Okay, in this scenario, since the big bricks can cover the entire goal, we just need enough to how do I phrase this? So we just need to to find out how many small bricks we have to use to reach the goal. So we can do this by using the modulo and taking the modulo 2. So goal modulo 5, that gets how much small bricks you need to fulfill the goal. Um, yeah. And then the second scenario is when the big bricks aren't enough to cover the goal. So else, so in this scenario, we want to use as much big bricks as possible, since the big bricks aren't enough to cover the goal. So we just want to use as much um, big bricks as possible, and then we're going to see if the small bricks are enough to cover the goal. So left equals goal minus big times 5. Again, big bricks are 5 inches each. So we want to use as much big bricks as possible. So we use it all. So big times 5, that's how much the big bricks can cover. And then so we do goal minus the amount, the length that the big bricks can cover, so that we can see how much is left to fulfill the goal. And then we can see if the small bricks are enough to cover it. So we know that if the amount of small bricks is greater than or equal to the amount that is left, then we know that it is possible to make the goal. But um, if there's not enough small bricks to then the amount required, then we know that it's not possible. So yeah. So as always, if you have any questions, you guys can type it in chat, and if we're good to go, you guys can also type that in chat. I'll just continue. So next we have lone sum. So given three integer values a, b, and c, return their sum. However, if one of the values is the same as another, then it does not count towards the sum. Um, so So we're asked to return the sum of A, B, and C, but if one of the values is the same as another, so if A equals B, then A and B do not count towards the sum. So only C counts towards the sum in that scenario. So in this case, 1, 2, and 3, they're all different. So uh, they all count toward the sum. So you add them, you get 6. In this case, you have a duplicate. So A and C are the same. So um, they don't count. So only B counts. So you get 2. Um, in this case, they're all the same. So none of them count. So 0. So first, let's set sum to 0. And then we can determine whether to add each variable by checking if there's a duplicate. So this statement checks if it checks that A is not equal to B or C, so that if the statement is fulfilled, then we know that we can add A to the sum. And then we can repeat this for B and C too. So notice how they're all if statements. They're not like if, elif, else, because you want everything to be considered. And then we return sum. So next, we have lucky sum. So given 3 integer values again, A, B, and C, return the sum. However, if one of the values is 13, then it does not count towards the sum, and the values to its right do not count. So for example, if B is 13, then B and C don't count. So in this example, B is 13. So the question wants us to add A, B, and C and return their sum, but it wants us to ignore um, a value if it's 13 and all the values after. So in this case, B is 13, so it doesn't count towards the sum, and the values to its right do not count. So 3 doesn't count too, because C is to the right of B. In this case, C is 13, so C doesn't count, and there's nothing to the right of it, so it's just A plus B. In this case, there's no 13, so you add everything. And if A was 13, then none of the variables would count, so it would just be 0. So that's the idea of the problem. So let's start. So we can just consider like all the cases, like if A equals 13, if B equals 13, like that. Okay, so if A equals 13, then it's 0 because you don't count A and everything to the right of it, so there's nothing to add, so it's 0. If B is 13, then it's just A because B and C doesn't count. So return A. If C is 13, then you just add A and B. And if nothing is 13, then you add everything. So in this case, 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. Notice how we start from A and then we go to the right. So A, B, C, we go in that order. So that if A is 13, then even if like B or C is 13, then they don't count. They don't count anyways because they're to the right of it. Okay, so next, no teen sum. So given three integer values, A, B, and C, return their sum. However, if any of the values is a teen, which means that it's within the range 13 to 19 inclusive, so including the 13 and 19. So all the integers inside it, 13, 14, 15, all that, then that value counts as 0. Except 15 and 16 do not count as a teen. Um, so it's just 13, 14, skipping 15 and 16. So 17, 18, 19. Um, the question wants us to write a separate function um, called fixteen that receives a parameter n. So it takes an integer value and returns that value fixed for the teen row. The reason we do this is so that we avoid repeating the teen code 3 times. So let's start. So I wrote this as specified in the problem, def 16. So the question says that 15 and 16 don't count as a teen, so the value should be returned. So return n uh, if it's 15 or 16. But if it's within the range 13 to 19, then it wants us to return 0. It wants us to count it as 0. So we return 0. And if it's not within this range, then it's not a teen, so return that age number. Okay, so this function, so given an integer, it returns the value it would be that fulfills the problem. So this part. So returning a 0 if it's 13 to 19, if it's not 15 or 16. So yeah, this function does this part. So the next part is to call the function, uh, inputting A, B, and C. So 16a calls this function using age A, and it returns an integer that fulfills the problem. And then we can do the same for B, and C. Okay, so next we have round sum. For this problem, we'll round an integer value up to the next multiple of 10 if the rightmost digit is 5 or more. So 15 rounds up to 20, so 5 or more. 16 rounds to 20, etc. Alternatively, round down to the previous multiple of 10 if the rightmost digit is less than 5. So 12 rounds down to 10. Given three integers a, b, and c, return the sum of their rounded values. And like the previous problem, the question asks us to write a separate function so that we don't have to write everything 3 times. So let's write the function first. So def round 10 none. So there's two scenarios. If the rightmost digit is 5 or more, or if it's less than 5. So we can get the rightmost digit by using the modulo. So num modulo 10, it gets the rightmost digit for num. So basically, it divides the whole thing by 10 and returns the remaining, which is the same as the rightmost digit. So there's two scenarios, if it's less than 5 and if it's 5 or more. So so let's consider if it's less than 5. Okay, so if the rightmost digit is less than 5, then we want to round down. So to do that, we can subtract the number by the value of that, the rightmost digit. So if you think about it, let's say the number is 56. I mean, not 56, 53, since the rightmost digit is less than 5. So if you think about 53, then if we subtract it by the rightmost digit, so 3, then you get 50, which is basically the same thing as rounded down. So if you get rid of the rightmost digit, then you round it down. So else, so if the rightmost digit is 5 or more, then we do something different since we want to round up instead of round down. So so we want to add instead of subtracting. But it's different. So to understand this, so let's consider like 58. To round this up, we need to add something so that the rightmost digit and whatever you add adds up to 10 so that it rounds up. So if you add 2, then it rounds up. So to get this number, so we basically do 10 minus 8. So 10 minus the rightmost digit, and we already discussed that this gets the rightmost digit. So 10 minus the rightmost digit gets a, a number so that if you add it, then you round up. So we're done with this function. Now we just have to call it 3 times for A, B, and C. Yeah. So this is one reason why a function is useful, because um, like normally you have to write this 3 times, but using a function, you can just write it 1 time and you can call it multiple times with different um, arguments. Got it. So next, close for. So given 3 integers A, B, and C, return true if one of B or C, so one of B or C is close, which means that um, B or C differs from A by at most 1. So 1 or 0 basically. While the other is far, meaning that it differs from both values by 2 or more. Um, and then note that ABS gets the absolute value of the number. Um, so basically, if B is close, then the other has to be far. So if B is close, then C has to be far, which means that C has to differ from A and B by 2 or more. So C has to differ from A and B by 2 or more if B is close. Um, and the other scenario is that if C is close, then B has to be far, which means that B has to be 2 or more from both A and C. Um, so this line of code, it checks if B is close, which means that it differs from A by at most 1, so less than or equal to 1. So it checks if B is close. Um, and then if B is close, then uh, all we have to do is check if C is far. So let's get to that later. Um, for now, let's check if C is close. So if I do that, then I'm checking if the difference between A and C is less than or equal to 1, which means that it's close. Um, so if C is close, then all we have to do is check if B is far. Um, and if none of the values are close, then return false, because to return true, one of them has to be close and the other has to be far. Um, so if none of them are close, then um, it's not fulfilled. So to make this simpler, we can write a separate function to check if it's far. I think it's best practice to avoid using the same variables so that you don't mess up with scopes. Okay, so the definition of being far is that it differs from both. So both of them has to differ by 2 or more. So we use the and statement. So what this function does is it checks if x is far. So it compares x to y and z. So y and z and checks if it differs by 2 or more. So basically, it checks if x is far. So we have to check if c is far. If c is far, if b is close. So we write c first because this function checks if the first value is far, and write the other two values. And for the second part, let's copy that, and we check if b is far. So like that. Um, okay, so if logic 2 is a bit more challenging, um, do you guys want to try going over string 2 or list 2, or just want to do go over the test?
Okay, then I think we'll go over the test questions and then we'll go over the hidden word problem. So I can share my
Okay.
screen. Mhm. Okay. So we'll start with question 21. Here, we have two variables. One is a equals 3 and b is set to 5. And what we want to do here is add 2 to the power of 3 to a. So if I evaluate this first, it will be 2 to the power of 3, so that will be 8. So it's going to be a plus equals 8. So that means I'm going to add 3 to 8. So a is going to equal 11. Because I do 3 plus 8. And then after that, it wants me to do minus equals b divided by 2 divided by 3. So I can start with this part. So if I replace b with 5, it'll be like this. And so if I do 5 divided by 2, since we have two division signs, it's going to be an integer. So it'll just be 2. And then if I do 2 divided by 3, it'll also just be an integer. So it'll be 0. And we want to subtract that from a, so that's the same thing as 11 minus 1, or 11 minus 0 from these two, which will just be 11. So the correct answer for that is B. Okay. So for the next problem, we also have two variables and we want to find the result. So x equals 8 and y equals 10. So we can, first I'll just write this again and replace the variables. So 8 divided by 3 times 3 divided by 2 plus 10 modulus 2 times 2. Okay, so we'll start with exponents. So we'll start here. So 2 to the power of 2 would be 4. And then after that, we're just going to do, the next is division, so we'll just start from the left side. 8 divided by 3, since it's going to be an integer, it's just going to be 2, because it has 2 division signs. And here, I'll write this again. Then we can do this, it'll be 6 divided by 2 plus 10 modulus 4. So 6 divided by 2, this time it only has one division sign, which means that it's going to be a float number. So I'll write it right here. 6 divided by 2 will be 3.0. And then we'll add that with 10 modulus 4, which means that we'll do 10 divided by 4, which is 2. And we can see that the remainder is going to be 2 as well. If we do 10 divided by 4, we'll see that the remainder is going to be 2, so we'll add 2. And since we're adding these, one's an integer, one's a float, it'll actually become a float, so it'll just be 5.0. So our correct answer would be D. Okay. So in this code, we want to see the types of these three variables. So we can see that the first variable is called age, and the value we have here is 0. And since that's a whole number, we know that this is an int. Okay. And the next one variable is minor, and it has the value false. And we know that if it has the values true or false, that means that it's a Boolean. And our last variable is called name, and it has quotation marks and then the word Durga in here, which means that it's a string. So you can see that int bool string, that would be C. Okay. So our next problem, which of the following code snippets will produce the output boy, cat, dog? So we want this to be the output and we'll look at all our options. So here we're given a list that has apple, boy, cat, and dog. And it says for x in L in a for loop. So that means that it's going to loop through all the items in your list L. So if the length of x doesn't equal 3, then we'll print it. So first we look at apple. The length doesn't equal 3, right? So it will print apple. The next one though, the length equals 3. 1, 2, 3. Boy is length 3, so it doesn't go in this if statement. And the next for cat as well, the length also equals 3, so it doesn't go in the print statement. And then for dog, the length is also 3, so it won't go in this print statement. So apple will be the only thing printed from this for loop. So we can see that is not what we want. For this next code segment, we have a for loop again that goes through all the items in this list, and we just print all of them. So all the items in the list in the for loop, we print. So we're going to print apple, boy, cat, and dog. So we can see that is also not correct because we don't want apple to print out. We only want boy, cat, and dog. And then for the next option, we can see it's also for loop going through all the items in the list. And if the length of the item is 3, then we'll print it. So you can check with apple, the length is not 3, so we won't go in this if statement. But for boy, the length is 3, so we'll print it. And for cat, the length is also 3, so we'll print it. And for dog, the length is also 3, so we'll print it. So this is what we want, boy, cat, dog. So this is going to be correct. And then the last option that we have here, it makes a new variable with the list starting from index 1 to the end. So index 1 is going to be right here, and then to the end. So our new list L1 is going to hold these 3 values, and then in our for loop, we're going to loop over L1, which is these 3, and we're going to just print these values. So we'll print boy, cat, and dog. So this answer choice is also correct. Okay. Remember, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Okay, so next we're looking at this list, which contains the items apple, banana, carrot, and mango. And we want to see which are valid ways of accessing mango. So we want to get this value out of the list. So if we do list index 0, index 0 is actually apple, so it will print apple. Which is not mango, so that is not correct. If we do list -1, it starts here, so it will be mango. Negative index will start from the back, and -1 will be mango. That is correct. And then list 3, index 3 will be 0, 1, 2, 3. So this will also print mango. So this would also be correct. And for the last one, if we do list index 4, it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't exist, so this will actually give us an error. So this does not work either. Okay. So our next problem has two variables. It has x, which has the string durga, and y also has the string durga. And we make the result equal to the condition. And so, okay, we're going to make this condition. We're going to replace this part with something, with one of these options that makes the result equal true. So first we'll look here, x doesn't equal y. We can see here, if we do that, these two strings have the same value, so this will be false. So this option is not true, or not the correct answer. And if we look here, for strings, actually, remember for lists, it's only is true if they're in the same, if it's basically the same list. But for strings, actually, it will, is always true if we have the same string. So even though x, if for lists, we would have to do like x equals y in order to make x is y true, would be true. But for strings, we, as long as they contain the same value, x is y is going to be true. Which means that this answer choice is true, and that is why is not would actually be false. So this doesn't work as well. And then x is less than y, that doesn't work as well because you can't compare strings just by doing this. If you did it with like length, that would work, but like it would also be false because they're the same length. So this one does not work as well. So our answer is C. Okay. So for Question number 27. In which of the following cases will we get the same result? So we can just solve all of these and see what we get. So if we do 3 to the power of 1, we know that will just be equal to 3. And if we do 13 divided by 4, we know that since we have two division signs, it will be an integer. So it will just come out to 3. If we do 23 modulus 5, we can see that we will have a remainder of 3, because if we do 23 divided by 5, then our answer we'll get, so 23 divided by 5 would be 4 with the remainder of 3. So this is also 3, since modulus finds the remainder. And then lastly, 11 divided by 3. If we do that, it will actually, since it only has one division sign, it will be a float number. So it will be like 3.66 something something. So we can see that the only ones that are equal are A, B, and C. Even though you might think that this is also has 3 in it, since it's not exactly the same, it is not correct. Okay. For question 28, we have 4 variables that A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, C is equal to 4, and D is equal to 6. And we want to see which of our answer choices results in -4. So this one also, we can just solve all these answer choices and see which one is correct. So we can start with this one. So I'll just replace this first. So B is 2 plus C, which is 4. And then we do divided by A, which is 1, and then modulus of D, which is 6. So if we do that, we start with the parentheses. So 2 plus 4 will be 6. 6 divided by 1, modulus 6. So if we do this first, 6 divided by 1, since it has two division signs, it will just be an integer. So it will be 6, and then modulus 6. And if we do 6 divided by 6, we will have a remainder of 0. So our answer is going to be 0, which is not -4. And then we can do our next one. I'll replace these as well. So A is 1 plus B, which is 2, divided by C, which is 4, and modulus of 6. So we start with the parentheses again. So it'll be 3 divided by 4 modulus 6. If we do 3 divided by 4, since it's going to be an integer, it will be 0. And if we do 0 modulus 6, it will, if we do 0 divided by 6, it will also be 0 with no remainder. So it will just have, the answer will just be 0 as well, which is also not -4. Our next answer choice, I'll do A is 1 plus B, which is 2, divided by C, which is 4, times D, which is 6. So if we do this, we start with the parentheses again. So 3 and then divide it by 4 times 6. So that means we do this first, which is 3 divided by 4 with no remainder, or 3 divided by 4 as an integer. So that will be 0, and 0 times 6 will also be 0. So that is not correct either. And then lastly, we do 1 plus 2 divided by d is 6, and then minus 4. So we can see here, we add again, and it will be 3 divided by 6 minus 4. So if we do 3 divided by 6, and it's an integer, it'll be 0. And then we subtract 4. So our answer will be negative 4. So this one will be correct. Okay. Our next question, it says that you're writing a Python program to read 2 int values from the keyboard and print the sum. So which of the following code we have to write at line 1 to print the sum of the given numbers? So here's line 1. So we get an input that in variable x that enters the first number, and an input for y which enters the second number. So if we just do input, the values that we get are actually going to be strings. So x will be a string and y will be a string. So in order to find the sum, we want to make sure that they are integers that we can add to get the sum. So if we look at the first answer, we can see that they cast x plus y to int, and then they cast it back to string. So if we do this, x plus y, since they're both strings, so for example, let's just say we have x is 1 and y is 2. Then if we do x plus 1, before we cast it to integer, it will actually still be a string. So if you add strings together, it will just be concatenated, so it will just go next to each other like this, so it will look like it's 12. Then if we cast it to integer, it will actually become 12. And we can cast it back to string to print it with the print statement, but it will not be the right answer because if we do 1 and 2, we want the sum to be 3, not 12. So this one is not correct. Our next answer, choice, it actually makes them both integers before, so this will just be 1 plus 2. So that will be 3. But then it doesn't bring it back to a string. It doesn't cast it back to a string. And you can't add a string and an integer together. So this will not be correct either. The third answer choice, we can see it individually casts it to int. So it will be 1 plus 2. And our sum, that means our sum would be 3, which is correct. And we cast it back to a string. And that means that we can print it with the result without getting an error because 3 will also be a string. So this one would actually be correct. Now we can look at the last one as well. This one, like the first one, it just adds it before when it's before casting to an integer, so it's going to be a string and then it'll be 12. And we cast it to an integer, so it'll be the result plus an integer 12. And remember, I said for like the second answer choice, you can't add a string and an integer, so this one would be wrong as well. Okay, question 30. You're developing a Python application for your company. A list of employees name contains 500 employee names. In which cases will we get index error while accessing employee names? So we want to see in which one we'll get an error, index error. So if we do employee index 500, you can see that when you do a list, when you get the indexes, the index starts at 0. So if we have 500 employees, since we start at 0, our last index will actually be 499. It will not be 500. So this one will actually give us an error because index 500 doesn't exist. If we were to have like a colon, so it was like employees and then colon up to 500, so it would be from 0 to 500. Even though 500 doesn't exist, this will actually not give us an error. This will actually be correct because it has a colon. So it will just give us all the values and stop at 499 without an error. But since this is just 500, it will give us an index error. Employees -1, you can see that this works because you can start from the very back and it will be index -1, so that works. And you can see that employee 0, this also works because, like I mentioned, indexes of a list always start at 0. And so since this one's correct, it's not none above either. Okay. 31. It says, which of the following is valid Python operator precedence order? So you want to see kind of like the order of operations, like how we do it. And so we can look at the first answer. And we see that it starts with parentheses, which is correct. So this one you kind of just need to memorize, but it starts with parentheses, which is correct, and then exponents, and then unary, positive, negative, and not, and multiplication, division, additions and subtraction, and then and, which is actually correct. So we can see the other ones, this one, it starts with exponents and says that parentheses is last, which is not true because parentheses should actually be the very first. So this one's not correct. And then we can see for this one, parentheses is second, which is also not correct. It should be first. So this is why this one's not correct. And for the last answer choice, the parentheses is correctly in the very top. And exponents, these are all correct, but then you see here that multiplication and division should actually come before addition and subtraction. So this is why this one's wrong. So you should remember when doing operators, this is the order you want to follow. Okay. So we want to see in this example, which of the variables will represent false. So we can see here, I mentioned the bool function. It's always going to be true unless it says false or it says 0 or it's an empty string or an empty list or an empty set, tuple, etc. So here you can see that it has a list that has the value false. So you may think that this one is false, but since it's a value inside of a list, it will actually be true. If it was just bool and then false, it would have been false. But since it has a list, the false is just an item inside the list. So, and the list is not empty because it has the value false in it. So this will actually be true. And then for B, it says bool and then 3. And that is also true because it's you can have any number, any value, as long as it's not 0, and it will be true. For C, you can see that this will actually be false because it's an empty string. You can't have, if you have an empty string or an empty list or something that is empty inside of this bool method, then it will be false. And D, this one as well, it looks like it's an empty string, but it's actually going to be true because it has a space. So you can see here, there's a space. It's not just an empty string. And because a space still counts as a character. So that means that the string is not empty. So the only one that will be false is C. And we can see here that this is the correct answer choice. Okay. Okay, we want to see the types, we want to identify the types of the 3 variables, weight, zip, and value. So we can see the first variable, weight, it has a decimal point, which means it's a double. So this one's a double. A float. So since it has a decimal point, it's going to be a float value. And then our zip variable is, it has quotation marks. So even though there are, it looks like number values, it's actually going to be a string. And then if we do value equals positive 23 e to the 4th, this will actually be a float type as well. So then we can see that our answer is going to be float, string, float. So B is correct. Okay. So our next question, you're writing a Python program. You are required to handle data types properly. Consider the code segment. So we have 3 different variables with 3 different values, and we want to identify their types. So we can see here that if you add 2 integer values, it will become an integer. It will still be an integer, so our answer will just add the 2 values and become 30. If we add 2 string values, it will just add them together as a string, so it'll just become, or it'll just combine the 2 strings, so it'll become 10, 20, like this. So 10, 20 as a string. And lastly, if we multiply a string, then it will just print this string 3 times. So it'll be 10, 10, 10, printed like this as a string. So 3 times. So that means that our outputs will, or our variables will be an integer, a string, and a string. So we can see that A is the correct answer choice. Okay. So we want to see in this problem in which cases will true be printed onto the console. So we can see that here that we have a list called subjects, and it has the items Java, Python, and SAP, and a list called more subjects, and it has Java, Python, SAP, and we have another variable called extra subjects, and it contains the items in more subjects. So if we look at this, print extra subjects is more subjects. We can see that this will be true because extra subjects contains the values of more subjects, so they're in the same location, which is more subjects, so is will be true. Next, it compares subjects is more subjects, and we can see that this one is actually false because even though they contain the same values, they're stored in different variables, so they have different locations. So this one is not true. The next one, you can see subjects equals extra subjects. This one, extra subjects and subjects, you can see that this will also be true because they contain the same values. So subjects has Java, Python, SAP, and extra subjects contains the same value, same list as more subjects, which has Java, Python, and SAP, which are the same. So then C is also true. And then for D, subjects is extra subjects. You can see that this is also false because extra subjects has its list located is the same location as more subjects, but it's different than subjects, which is defined separately. So this is also incorrect. Okay. Next one is consider the Python code. So we have these variables. A is 5, B is 10, C is 2, and D is true. And it has these operations stored into variables x and y. And we have a condition and that we want to see that which one will it be to print valid. So if we want to print valid, we need this condition to be true. So we have these conditions that compare x and y. So let's go ahead and evaluate x and y. So x will be equal to a is 5 plus b is 10 times c, which is 2. So we'll start with 10 times 2, which is 20. And 20 plus 5 will be 25. So x is 25. And for y, we'll do a plus 10 divided by d, which is true. So true when it's used for like an operation, it will actually be, so booleans can have integer values, and true is always 1 and false is always 0. So false is 0 and true is 1. So since it's true, it will just be 1. And we can start with division. So 10 divided by 1 is 10, and 10 plus 5 is 15. So then we want to see which condition will be true. So we can see here x is less than equal to y. That's asking if 25 is less than equal to 15, which is false because 25 is greater than 15. This one asks if x is less than 15, or x is less than y, so 25 is less than 15, which is also false. And this one, our third answer choice, asks if x is greater than y, so 15 is greater than 25, which is true. So C is our correct answer. And the last one asks if x, oops, I wrote this incorrect. It's 25 is greater than 15, sorry. So x is greater than y, that is true. And then the last one is 25 is equal to 15, which is not true. So our answer choice, correct answer is C. Okay. So our next question, it asks to print 2 as the output. Which code do we have to insert at line 1? So that means we, so if you look at our print statement, we print the length of S2. So we want to make the length of S2 be 2. So we can see here S1 is S index 6 to -4. So let's go ahead and see what that is. So it would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it starts from the space and is, it goes up to -4. So 0, or -1, -2, -3, -4. So it actually just goes from space is and then space as S1. And then we want to see which one will make the length 2. So right now the length is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. but we want to make it 2. So the first one, if we do s1.lstrip, it will actually do, so strip will actually take out the space. But if we do lstrip, then it will take out the space on the left, only on the left. So if we do that, then it will just be is and then a space after. So the length will be 3. So it's not 2, so this is incorrect. And if we do s1.rstrip, it will take out the space on the right, which means, which means that it will be space is, and the length is also 3, so that is incorrect as well. And then if we do, and then for this one, there is no method that exists called lrstrip, so this one's just incorrect. And lastly, if we do strip, it will take out the spaces on both sides. So it will just be is, and the length will be 2. So this one will be our correct answer. Okay. So our next question, we're going to see which of the Boolean functions will represent true. So like I said, if the answer is 0 or it's empty or it's just false, then it will be false, and otherwise it will be true. So we can see that this is an empty list, so A will actually be false. And then same here, we have an empty tuple, so that will also be false. And so these will be false. And then range 0, that will, if you find the range, it's going to be from 0 to the number that you put inside of this function. But since it's 0, it's going to go from 0 to 0. So our value will be 0, which is also false. And then here we have an empty dictionary, so it'll be false. And then we have an empty set here, so it will be false. So you can see from our answer choices, none of the variables represents true. So that is our correct answer. Okay, so question 39, we have 2 variables, A is 21 and B is 6, and we want to print these 3 print statements. So yeah, we can just see what they evaluate to. So the first one is 21 divided by 6. And remember that if you do just one division sign, then it will be a float. So that equals to 3.5. Next, we do 21 divided by 6, but with 2 division signs. So that will be an integer. It'll just be 3. And if we do 21 and then modulus 6, you can see that if you do 21 divided by 6, you'll get 3, and then you'll get a remainder of 3. And so that will also be an integer. So you can see that our answer will be 3.5, 3, and 3, so that's going to be B. Okay. And our last question, we have 2 lists, N1 has the values 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. And then N2 also has 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. So we want to see N1 is N2. We've done like a lot of these, so by now you should know that this is false because for lists, even though they both have the same value, if they're defined in separate variables, that means they're not in the same location, and is finds location. And if we do n1 equals n2, we know that this will actually be true because the values are the same in each list. And then now we assigned n1 to have the same values as n2, which means that n1 now stores the same list in the same location as n2. So is will actually be true, and the values are still equal. They'll be the same because now n1 and n2 both have this list. So equals will also be true. So our answer will be false, true, true, true. So D will be the correct answer. Yeah. Okay, so we're done with the test, the first test. So you guys can see how many you got right with that as well. And I think, were you guys able to finish string 2, or did you have questions on that as well? Because string 2 is easier than logic 2, so we can go ahead and review that, or we can go over the hidden word problem. Okay, so Jaden, are you ready to do the hidden word? You can go ahead and...
I am.
Feature.
Yeah. Okay. So I can screen share the code. Let me find my. Okay. Okay. Can you guys see my Visual Studio code?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, wait. I need to screen share the problem too. So let me read. All right. So you guys should be able to see my screen. Okay. So the question was hidden word. So basically, it's a guessing game where a player tries to guess a hidden word, and the hidden word contains only capital letters and has a length known to the player. And in this example, the length is 5 because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the length of the hidden word. And a guess contains only capital letters and has the same length as the hidden word. So yeah, that's self-explanatory. It just means the guesses will have no lowercase letters and they will be the same length 5, just like this one is. After a guess is made, the player is given a hint that is based on a comparison between the hidden word and the guess. So each position in the hint contains a character that corresponds to the letter in the same position in the guess. So basically, what that means is, as you can see here, there are these different symbols, and the symbols are all corresponding to a certain letter or a certain position inside the hidden word. So if you look here, it will show you what these symbols mean. The following rules determine the characters that appear in the hint. If the letter in the guess is blank blank blank, the corresponding character in the hint is also in the same position in the hidden word. Oh, so that just means is if like if the hidden word or the letter in the hidden word and the guess word match, then you just put the letter. And yeah, if the if the letter is inside the hidden word but in a different position, then we put the plus. So you can tell here, uh, if we compare these two, A and H are not the same, but this word does have an A inside of it, so this A would become plus. And but the second one, if you look compare the two, there's an A here and an A here, and they're the same. So that means this one becomes A. And the rest are all plus because these are not A, but there is an A inside. And if the letter is not inside the hidden word at all, then we put a star. So for example, the H is the same in hello and harps, but there is no ELLO inside this hidden word harps. So everything becomes star. So yeah. This is the starting code that they gave us, and so uh, we can tell from here the hidden word is harps, just like in the example. And then this right here is a function which you will write your code in. Sorry. Uh, sorry. Let me mute my. Sorry about that. Give me a sec. Let me mute my notifications real quick. Sorry about that. My Discord just completely crashed. So yeah. Yeah, I think there's a problem with my internet or something. Let me try screen sharing again. Okay. All right. I think it's working. Okay. So yeah, this is where you would write your code, and if you look down here, then there's another function, and this will basically just say uh, while the word that you're guessing does not match the hidden word. So while it's not correct, then we just keep inputting a new word. And I'll show you guys the real code just in a second. And so this is what my code looks like. So if you look here, this is the function that they originally gave us, except all of this was not originally there. I wrote all of that. And so I'll explain what I wrote. So the first thing we do is write a for loop, and we'll write that for x in range of the length of the hidden word. Honestly, since the question said that right here, that the length is known to the player, we can just put 5 right there. It will be the same thing. That's just getting the length of the hidden word, which will be 5, but we can just honestly replace that with 5 if we wanted to. So yeah, so this will basically loop 5 times, which is and basically the reason it loops 5 times is because it'll check every character inside the hidden word and compare it to the guess word. So if you look here, the first thing I checked is if the character inside the guess word, my word is the guess word, by the way. So if the character inside my word, which is the guess word, equals the character inside the hidden word, then I add it onto, oops, I add it onto the result. So yeah, so it'll add on the actual word to the result, which is what it's set to do here. So for example, since the A and the A match, it'll add the A into the result. Now elif, so if it doesn't do that, or sorry, if it's not equal, then the next thing we have to check is for this plus. And the plus means if the character is inside the hidden word, but not in the same position, then we write the plus. So what I did is I checked if our current word, or sorry, our current character in the guess word was inside the hidden word. And so if it was inside the hidden word, then we put plus on the end of the result. And so yeah, that'll basically check if it is contained inside this. And else we just put the star, because if it's not inside, then we just put a star to put the placeholder. And then I return the result. So now if I run this, we can try all the examples here. So first example was A. So if we try A, sorry, 5 A's not 4. Then it'll print plus A plus plus plus. Because the word is harps. The word is harps, so plus A plus 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 is correct, as it says here. Next we can try hello. So yeah, it'll keep looping to input a word until we actually get the word correct. So we put hello, and it'll put H star 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 star, because the only word character that matches is the H. The next word we can try is heart. HEART. So H star plus plus star. That's correct. H plus, or H star plus plus star. That's correct because H is inside the guess word, or sorry, H in the guess word is also inside the hidden word in the same position, but E is not, so it will just be a star. But the A and the R are both inside the hidden word, but they're not in the same position, so it becomes plus. And the T is not inside the hidden word at all, so that's why it's a star. The next one, harms. We can try harms. So yeah, the only word that's not, or the only character that's not in there is the M. So that's why the M is a star. And then finally, harps. We try typing harps. And it'll say correct. And then it won't ask for another input word. It'll just be correct. That might have been a bit confusing. I also may not have been the best at explaining it, but hopefully that made sense. Let me know if you have any questions. I can keep it on the screen for a little. Yeah, of course. Pasiano, I will send the code. I can send all of it actually. Um, yeah, because it might be kind of hard to read right here. Um, Here, I'll send the code in live lecture notes. Any questions? Mm, you didn't understand on writing the code. Okay, so Winston, do you understand the problem? Like what the question is asking? I see. Okay. So let me re-explain the question. Hopefully, I can try drawing. Hopefully that'll be better. Okay. So okay. So basically, the the general basis of this question is uh there will be a hidden word, except it's not really hidden because we know the word. Or like right now we know the word since we're the one programming it, but uh if we look here, basically there will be a word and we just have to try and match that word by giving hints, and the hints will be sorry, and the hints will be given in pluses or stars. And so let me explain that. So let's say the word we are trying to match is harps, which is the example here. So there are a few ways like we can try and guess this, but the way that they want us to do it is by using the pluses and the stars. And so the plus means that the word that we use to guess, the plus means that the word that we use to guess is inside the hidden word, or the letter that we use to guess is inside the hidden word, but it is not in the right spot. So, for example, if we let's say that these are our guesses, and our first guess is A. So, does if we just compare them, like here, let me actually delete it. Actually, delete that right there. If we compare these two characters, then are they the same? No, they're not the same. And so this one's an H and this one's an A. So that's why it would not match. But if we check the rest of this word right here, there's an A right here. And so that is why we put a plus here, because the plus means that it doesn't match this spot, but the A exists somewhere else inside the word. And now we just check it again. Is the A here? Yes, the A is here. So we write an A. Now, is the A here? No. But there is an A here. And because there's an A there, we put a plus. Now we check the P. Is there an A there? No, it's a P. But there is an A over here. So that's why we put a plus. And the same thing for the S. There is no A here, but there is an A here. So we put a plus. Now, if we were to put in a different guess word, yeah, if we were to put in a different guess word, for example, heart. Let's try putting heart. So now this is the guess word. This is the word that we are trying to compare the word harps with. Now, if we check the first value, the H and the H match, and so it will be an H, because if they match, then we just put the one that or put the letter that they are. Okay. And the next one we check A and E. A and E, they don't match. But we can check. We have to check if the E is inside this word at all. But we look at all of them, and there's no E. So that's why we put the star like that. So now we check A and R. Do they match? No, they don't match. But there is an A over here. So that's why we put a plus. Okay. And now again we check here and here. The R and the P, they don't match. But there is an R over here. So that's why we put a plus. And the S and the T, we check them. They don't match, but there is no T here either. So that's a star. And so that's why we get H star plus plus star. Yeah. So that is the actual, like, what the question is asking. And so the code that I used to find that was this. Is everyone good on this question? This is a bit of a harder question to understand. The actual coding part, I feel like, is not too difficult, but just understanding the question might be more difficult. They seem to be good. Okay. If you ever need, the code is posted in live lecture notes. So David posted it, and so you can look at that. And yeah, other than that, I'll hand it off to Hermosa teacher to go over the W3 school's content.
All right. So, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this part is going to be about file opening and reading files. So we're mostly going to be working with text files. So we're going to be using something called the open function. And you can see it's literally just open and then you have parentheses after. And then there's 4 different modes for opening a file. So each is defined by the string with 1 letter. So R would be read. And this is the default value. So if you just open a file without putting anything inside that open parentheses, it's just going to be defaulted to read. And this basically just opens a file to read it. And then if the file does not exist, then it has to give an error. And the second option is to append. And to append, the word itself means to add. So when you open a file for appending, you're creating a file if it doesn't exist as well. So all you're doing when you're appending is you're just adding stuff to the end of the file. And if the file doesn't exist, this one, instead of giving you an error, it's actually going to create a new file with that name. And then the third option we have is the write option, and this is just 1 W. And we open a file for writing, and this one also creates the file if it does not exist. So the difference between appending and writing is that appending is adding something to the end of the file compared to writing, and writing is going to overwrite everything in the file. So I think you guys can see my screen right now. I'm just going to create a text file. You don't need to do this. This is just for an example. Oops. So it's going to be called hello.txt. And then I'm going to say hello, exclamation points. Like, today is a wonderful day. And then if I appended this file right now, and then I said append like goodbye, then it would give us something like this, because we're adding it to the end. So that's what happens if we appended something. But if we wrote goodbye, so if we use the write part or write option, then it's going to erase this first line and instead it's going to write goodbye. So writing is going to replace what's there compared to append, which is adding. And create is just gonna create a file that you name the file. So you give it the name, and then if the file doesn't exist, then it's basically just gonna give us an error. And then we can also specify if the file is handled as binary or text mode. So text is what we're going to be using a lot because most of our files are in text form. Like this is a txt, which is text. And then binary is for, if you don't know what binary is, it's like series of ones and zeros, and everything on a computer can be represented by binary. So it's saying that you can use images. That's a possibility. And just example syntax right here, f is what you would set the file equal to, and then this would open this file called demofile.txt. And so I'll change this back to hello, exclamation point. And then I'm gonna try this right now so you guys can see. So f equals open hello.txt. And if I run this program, you guys see that nothing's gonna happen. It just runs and then nothing gets printed out. So what we need to do is, and also, look, this code right here, which means we want to read and it's for text. We don't need to put that because these two are already the default values. So these two will essentially give us the same exact thing. And so if I want to print, maybe I want to print out the file. So I'm going to say print and then f.read, open parentheses. And this function is just going to read everything in this file and then print that out for us because I said to print it. So if we run it, you can see it prints out hello, today is a wonderful day, which is exactly what was in this hello.txt file. And that brings us to our next section, which is reading the actual files. And as you can see right here, we open a file in this example called demofile.txt, and we want to read it, which is why we have the R right here. And then this one is just going to print what's in the file, just like we did in this program right here. So it's the same thing. And then you can also open a file at a different location. So to show you guys, I'm going to create a new folder. Let's just name it like new. And then inside, I'll put a new file called new.txt and say this is a new file, exclamation point. And then I'm going to copy the relative path. And let me add this R. It's good to specify what you're reading or what you're doing with the file. So we're reading in this case. That's why I put the R here. And then I'm going to paste that the shortcut or the path that I copied earlier. So this is just the path to get into this folder. And so if okay, so it looked like that did not work. Let me try copying the actual path. Okay, I'm not sure why that's not working. It might be because I named the file wrong. But if you do know the actual file location, you can put that in right there in the place of right here. So I'm gonna put this back to hello.txt. And this, I don't need to use this long file location because I'm in the same file. Like you see hello.py and hello.txt, they're on the same, they're in the same folder. And then if you only want to read parts of the file, Oh, I'm going too fast. Yeah, sorry about that. It's probably because we have like barely any time. But I guess I can stop for now and hand it to Serena, who I think
Okay,
will be going over the homework.
yeah, so were you guys able to finish all the coding bat problems? Because I think not everyone finished the logic 2, string 2, and list 2. And we need to make sure that everyone finishes those before we do any more fun projects, because those are like the basic skills that we need. So it will help you when you do the projects. So even though it might be hard, please try to complete all the rest of the coding bat for today's homework. And yeah, so yeah, we'll continue during the files topics on next week. But for this week's or this weekend's homework, please complete all the coding bat problems. And then yeah, and I think we'll have also some other W3 school topics that you guys can read on your own and go over first. Oh, and if you haven't, make sure to read over the tuples and sets and dictionaries. W3 schools, I sent it in the homework link as well. So you can read over it and try the examples for yourself. And you can kind of see they're really similar to lists. So it shouldn't be too difficult. So make sure to do that in the coding bat. And we're done for this week. So thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.